Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harpin On Rugby, where with the help of some fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. For this pod, we're going to be focusing mostly on the back-to-back Six Nations winning Ireland and our two-match test series with the world champion Springboks. And I've been joined by another one of our all-provincial panels, starting with our Connacht representative. This is his 16th Harpin appearance. He's the owner-operator of the online entity known as the Second Row. Welcome back to Mr. Pádraig Kelly.
Thanks. How's it? Great to be on again. I've done more on this podcast this year than I've done on anything of my own. So it's always great to be on.
There you go, indeed. Always good to have you. And offering a view from the southernmost province of Munster, she is also making her 16th appearance. Hello once again to Michelle Tobin.
Consider myself a born again harpiner because it has been quite some time.
It's been a while, all right, indeed. And finally, we have someone making their harping debut, although he's no stranger to podcasts, being as he is a frequent contributor to the excellent Ulster-centric show, The Red Hand. Warm welcome to Mr. Jack Fogarty. Hello, sir.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on, Jeff. Looking forward to it.
No problem. Good to have you. And of course, being an all-provincial panel, that would make me the Leinster representative, though for these, I try to be as neutral as I can. We'll see how long that lasts. Okay, so listen, let's get started anyway. And we're going to do separate pods for the two tests. So we'll talk in depth about the two actual matches then. But for this pod, I'd like to take a broader view of the series, starting with Ireland's side of things. It's been a roller coaster 18 months or so, to say the least. I mean, going from number one ranking, Grand Slam, and World Cup disappointment, Six Nations title that included a last gasp defeat at Twickenham, all with the prospect of changes in the coaching ticket, including a spell without Andy Farrell. I know it's an abstract question, Pádraig, and I apologize, but listen, just where are we at right now? Are things good? Are they bad? Up in the air? Like, what do you make of it?
It's really funny because you say that, like, especially with the World Cup last year, and like we won, everyone kind of expecting a Grand Slam for some reason this year. And it's very easy to kind of take those two things, the length of the season, Leinster's form coming into this as well, because they do take up bulk of 16 and kind of go, we're a bit in trouble. But you kind of have to remember that Team Ireland is very different to Leinster, Connacht, Munster, Ulster. It's a different environment. Andy Farrell is very much a different coach. I think you have to really look at the Andy Farrell effect when talking about Ireland. He does get them playing at an emotional pitch that is very easy to replicate. That's why I kind of liked his when he came on board in the first place. That kind of Ireland always seemed to be emotionally not always hitting the right tempo. My big worry for Ireland is, though, how tired the players have looked the last couple of weeks. Like, I think as individuals, some of the players have played a lot more minutes than they're kind of expecting. Tadhg Beirne, especially, I think he's played the highest minutes of any international in Ireland this year, and that's very unusual for an Irish player. And it's those aspects I'm kind of going, what's really, that's why it's so hard to tell where they are. And that's what I'm kind of looking forward to as the next 2 weeks go on. Goes, are these guys able to pick it up one more time before they get a holiday? Because they've been on the go now for effectively 12 months. It's like this time last year, they're going to preseason. So these guys haven't had effectively a proper break. They've had like mini holidays throughout the season, but it's that tiredness. Is that going to have a big impact? Because this is a big test for these guys. You know, you're going up against the world champions, the best team in the world. I don't care what anyone says, what anyone tries to swing this into. And I think as players, they'll definitely be up for it, but will their bodies let them? That's a different story.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a long attritional season anyway, but with the World Cup and everything, and with the build up and everything, I mean, it's like they've somehow squeezed like 13 months of rugby into 12 months or whatever it is. It's been crazy. What do you make of it, Michelle?
I think it's actually longer because we went straight from last season. The URC final was June. And then the Ireland Rugby World Cup warm-up camp started on the 19th of June. So then we went into World Cup. Then we did a full season. Both Leinster and Munster were involved almost to the end of the URC. And then they had a week off and straight into the camp for South Africa. I know we talked about Tadhg Beirne, but looking at even the players in the airport, you could see so many of them. They've played pretty much 2 seasons back to back, and they're facing into a Lions Tour year. There's a big question about whether they should have been a summer tour for anyone this summer. We talking about player welfare. I was listening to another podcast over the weekend, and they made the case for no summer tours. And actually, from a player welfare perspective, I don't think there should be one. We know that still, having said that, the players who are exhausted are more than capable of raising their game. But of all the places to be going this summer, South Africa is the last place that I want to see Ireland going, because when you're tired, that's when injuries happen, that's when mistakes happen. And I am genuinely fearful for some of our players.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, traveling to South Africa. I mean, Ty Byrne, like one of his, on top of all the time he's actually played, he also went on that tour, I think, with Munster to South Africa as well. So he's been up and down several times. That's a lot of traveling. That's a long season, and yeah, I mean, they've been talking about supposedly fixing this calendar for a while now, and I'm still waiting for it to happen. Just one season goes into the next, and like we say now, there's going to be a Lions tour at the end of the next season. It's a lot to be going on with, and it's a very good point about, you talk about where Ireland are at the moment. It's more of like how they're actually holding up and how they're going to play. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, just listening to everyone, it is apparent that it's been a long old season. I think I saw somewhere that might have been Squidge Rugby on Twitter or Instagram. He was saying since COVID, really, there's been the sort of pregated or protracted seasons there, and then there was a Lions tour, and then there was the next season. So it's really, some players have probably not had a break for a really very long time. Guys like Ty Byrne that we mentioned, he went on that Lions tour as well. So it's all over the shop really. So yeah, in terms of where Ireland are at, I do kind of worry about this tour, because it's South Africa. It's just a two test tour, so you haven't got really time to, like we did in the New Zealand tour. You haven't got a warm up one against the New Zealanders to kind of, okay, well we'll just win the next two. So we do tend to start a little bit slowly. In terms of where we're at, I mean, the form has definitely taken a dip from that sort of amazing game against France at the start of the Six Nations. One of Ireland's best ever games, probably. It may also be one of France's worst games that they've played in recent times, but just the quality of play there, and Crowley, first big Six Nations game, running the show. Tyke Byrne back to his best, just rampaging everywhere. It was really as if we were getting very excited. I know Padraig said about thinking about a Grand Slam. We were all thinking it after that first game. So to sort of see where we were at there, and then now seeing the rest of the Six Nations was probably a steady decline from Ireland in terms of quality of play, and it just wasn't quite clicking. But it's never that far away from clicking back. So you just never quite know if just the right kind of pitch is made, and just the right level of balance between rest, play and work on this tour. It may just be able to squeeze a couple of wins out, but it's bloody tough to go down there at any stage. But Glasgow have proven they can go down. You can go down and do it on a week's notice at the end of a very long season. So who knows? But yeah, this is probably as tough as it gets, and probably no one planned for these seasons to be as long as they are. But yeah, it'll be hella tough.
Plus, from a test standpoint, I mean, we're talking about, although the South African teams have gone north and joined our competitions, the Springboks haven't. So it's a case of we've had our long season pretty much straight through, including that Six Nations that really. Five games and 5 big test matches in 7 weeks, and during that time, the South Africans, on the other hand, are getting warmed up for their rugby championship, and they're kind of on a different kind of a cycle. Now, that's not a pre-excuse or anything. It's just we're talking about where Ireland is at the moment, and we're talking about what conditions the players are in. Of course, first test being in Loftus might not help either. Everyone. So, Leinster played there a while ago, but it's all about the dealing with the conditions and the atmosphere and all that stuff as well. So there's definitely a lot of challenges there. But I think Ireland are results wise, like everything I'd said in the build up there, the 2 Six Nations titles, all that stuff. I mean, a lot of, going back how many years we would have taken that. We would have taken going in with that kind of idea. Then, and it's the way the Springboks are talking about the way they really want to beat us. It's like we were sort of an itch. They still want to scratch. Like 2 World Championships, not enough for them. We beat them a few times, and they want to get over that as well. You know what I mean? They want to just get that off their backs as well. So it's teed up pretty well, and I think that I think we have to go in with it with the sense that we can do it. But it's just a question of how they actually are when they get out there. I suppose we'll see early on how that happens. Well, before we return to the pod, just a little reminder of all the different places you'll find us in the Ruggosphere. First of all, we have a radio slot every Friday after the 5 o'clock news on Dublin South 93.9 FM. Then when it comes to online, as well as our main site at harpinonrugby.com, we also have a presence on X, formerly known as Twitter. We have our match previews plus bonus recordings from our pods on our YouTube channel. This week, I asked the panelists to harp on their own provinces' respective campaigns for the season just gone. And we're also on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Mastodon. So if you're on any or all of those platforms, please do give us a follow to check out our full range of Leinster and Ireland rugby content. But listen, we'll move on. And, Ireland named a 35-man squad for this tour. Now, Razzie did his usual thing on social media, choosing to predict the Irish match day 23. And to be fair, it wasn't the worst shout when it came to it. But going to you first, Michelle, assuming we're going down there to win the series, but it's a big enough squad. Like who do you see that has a possibility of breaking through on this trip?
I think without a doubt, Jamie O'Brien at 15 is the player who has the biggest opportunity, because Keenan has been nailed on for Ireland for so long, and he's not just played so many games, but he's played so many minutes of so many games. O'Brien has been fantastic for Leinster at 15, and I think of all the players that are going out, he has the biggest opportunity. I think Craig Casey, knowing that he's either going to start or be a bench 9, is fantastic. We all know Craig is not the most physical. Well, no, he's not the biggest 9. I could argue about him being the most physical because he's up for anything. And I think he's that kind of fiery 9 that we need against South Africa. He's done really well when he's gone down to South Africa for Munster. And it'll be very interesting to see whether Farrell decides to start with Casey, knowing that Murray is on the bench. Sorry, Porrick, but Caelan Blade, I think, is our emergency cover, really, because he hasn't been a favourite. He hasn't had the time in various Ireland camps. So we are looking at a Casey Murray 1-2, and it just depends whether we start with the firecracker, knowing that Murray is the big, physical, experienced, calm player to come on, or whether he does it the other way around. So I think those two certainly in the backs have the biggest chance of breaking through. And I also look forward to seeing Ollie Jaeger in the front row, because Farrell has got, and this is not me, I know I started with Jimmy O'Brien, so I didn't start with the Leinster player. This is not me bigging up the Munster players. If Ollie Jaeger played for any other province, I would say the same thing. I had this notion before he came to us that he wasn't a big unit. And I was standing on the terrace in Exeter, and he was warming up in front of me, and I went, oh my God, it was like the Incredible Hulk was standing in front of me. He is a big unit. He is up for it. He's a do all the dirty work type of prop, and it's exactly what we need to be taking to South Africa against the Boks. So for me, those are the 3 players that really have a great opportunity, whether it's due to injury or other absences, or whether it's due to the fact that Healy and Porter can just not play 80 minutes, and we have to look at changing. And of all the props, the person I'm most comfortable about coming on or starting is Ollie Jaeger, because of who we're playing. I think he's the man for the job.
Yeah, I mean, like the first 2 positions you spoke of, I mean, they're kind of they're enforced, and it's almost good in a way that we're kind of forced to make these changes, to try other options, because I mean those two positions specifically have kind of sort of nailed on incumbents there. If they're fit, they play at the moment, and so it's good to be able to try other options, and hopefully it won't be, and I presume it can't be, just someone to go on and just play like them. They've got to stamp their own authority. Jimmy's got his own style of play. He's a lot more creative. He's good with accurate kicks and all that kind of stuff, and he can do his own thing. And Craig Casey, they complement each other. Himself and Conor Murray complement each other with Munster, and it'd be good to have that kind of knowledge and stability. But like you say, it's a case of they're two different styles of scrum half, so it's just a question of which do you go with first. So
Yeah.
a lot of decisions to make there.
Yeah, both of them have the experience with playing with Jack Crowley at 10
Yep.
as well, which is something that will come in really useful, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Okay, on to yourself, Jack. Who do you think can make a showing down in South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, fully agree with Michelle on a lot of those. Well, all of those really, because Jimmy O'Brien, as we all know, fabulous player. And he's also quite fresh as well. He had a little injury as well, so he only came back. What was it? Sort of, middle end of the second half of the season. So he came back with a bang now, and he was looking class. So more than happy for him if he slots well. Well, he probably will slot in at fullback. I can't see anyone else taking that, unless they want to change things up with Frawley. But yeah, for me, I make absolutely no excuses. I'm just going to name all the Ulster players, and the first one who's probably had the most sort of meteoric rise in the last few months has been Cormac Izuchukwu. I don't see him actually making the making the test squad. But if you're looking for a big back row. We might get on to selections a little bit later, but in terms of, if you want to go for size, you're gonna have to go for a big six, but who knows, there might be a bit of a reshuffle with the second row and getting, McCarthy, Ryan and Byrne all on the pitch at the same time. What you do with the back row, who knows? I guess the one guy who's not there, not because of injury, but because he's expecting his first child, Jack Conan. So he's not there. So he's your typical sort of bench man. So there will be an opportunity there, because I imagine we'll go 6-2. So Ryan Baird +1 maybe, and then it's a toss up between then Timoney and Prendergast. If maybe someone else is going to get shot in there in the back row, second row, something like that. So that could be really interesting. There may be a surprise inclusion, but sort of Tom O'Toole has been sort of touted as being potentially moved across to the loose head side of the scrum. So again, I don't really see you doing that on to the poor guy on his first try out on loose head against like Frans Malherbe or Vincent Koch of South Africa. So maybe not the best testing ground to do that, but it'd make great TV probably. But yeah, and then lastly, the only thing that I can see happening in the back line is if there's injuries, because I really don't see much change out of the back line of Casey Crowley, Bundy, etc. But if there is one injury to a really key player, I think that it'll be Jacob Stockdale that comes in for James Lowe. But James Lowe's been so important. He's been so fit. He's not missed many games, if any, when he's come back. Obviously, he's had little breaks when he's been away with Ireland and stuff. But he is the sort of like for the sort of 11 jersey. He's actually been playing really, really well towards the tail end of the season. Got a couple of nice tries and has been playing really well. Looks like he's got a bit of his confidence back. He is a confidence player. Somebody I really sort of back in this Andy Farrell setup, where he just gets everyone, pumped up and just G'd up for playing for Ireland. He just seems to make everyone tick. And for Jacob, he is 100%, confidence player. So if Andy can get the best out of him, then we could see, shades of 2018, I hope. But again, it's just whether these guys get given the opportunity. But with Andy, it's always been next man up, and it's just been a case of, well, give it your best shot. And actually, I think as a bit of a hot take, I actually think that Caleb Blade is probably the more like for like replacement to Gibson Park, because he has that threat around the breakdown and stuff. Padraig probably won't want to speak up about that just to save face, but I would stick some money on the fact that Caelan Blade will offer you a bit more than definitely more than Murray. I mean, Casey's got still a little bit of zip about him and can go around, but Caelan Blade just loves to have a little snipe, and I do love that in a nine. So there's a few guys that can go in there, but yeah, unfortunately, maybe not all the Ulstermen I mentioned will make it. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, it's all about what we're trying to do down there. So a lot of talk about this tour going back a few months now, saying, are we going down for a development kind of thing, or are we going down, put out our strongest side to win both tests? And I mean, when you look at Ireland's schedule from now to the end of the year, we're playing all the rugby championship teams before Christmas, and I think there's one against Fiji as well. So there's a lot of big contests to come, and you're up there competing at that level, and you want to put the best teams out there when you can. But of course, also you want to develop, and you want to give some caps, and you want to give some game times in green. So there's a lot of names in there. It's a big squad to bring down for 2 matches. You're thinking the likes of someone like Stan Prendergast is there just to get the experience of being on tour with the senior team. And there's maybe a couple more names there that might fall into that category. But there are still some opportunities just to get some game time into these newer players. What do you think, Parek?
Yeah, like I was actually really interested about the squad makeup because I have it in front of me, and in my eyes, we only have 2 loose heads. We only have one out and out 7, and only one player that you'd call a 15, and and one person you'd call an out and out 13. The rest of the squad, like all the wings, two of the 5 people in the wings could cover fullback for you. Frawley kind of covers half the back line. I really don't hope we see him at 15 because as good as a player he is, he doesn't have the pace to cover the full back, that full area of the pitch like Jimmy O'Brien and Keenan done. I think it's, as I've heard someone say, he kind of has a turning circle of an oil tanker. Like he just it takes him a while to get moving, and get turned. But he's key for 6-2 split. I think that was right about Jimmy O'Brien's going to be our set in stone 15. Like for me, I can see Nick Timoney very much taking that the Jack Conan spot on the bench of like the out and out replacement for at 8 to see when Peter O'Mahony comes off or however that works with the back row split. Like it was really interesting because I have my 6s as Peter O'Mahony, Ciaran Prendergast, Ryan Baird, and Cormac. And like I think there's a lot of planning in that position for life without Peter O'Mahony. That's the only reason you bring 3 6s down with you. The O'Toole for one at loosehead's the one I find really interesting because he is the only player there who might become a loosehead. Like Finlay was tried a couple of years ago, it just didn't work for him, And between himself and Ollie, they're great bench options. I think especially this year with how Munster have used Ollie Jaeger as that impact sub at tie head, I think it will really suit him coming on and giving that 20, 30 minutes, depending on how things are in training, because we're not we're not there. It's the injuries in squad have helped us see the fringe players. I think that's always the thing with these Irish squads. Provincial fans argue about players 30 to 35 because players 1 to 29 are effectively set in stone. We know them straight off the bat. So it's those kind of, who are the 50-50s? Like, if we were looking for pure development, we're not going to South Africa this summer. We're going to Japan. We're going somewhere else, or we have midweek tests against South Africa A, and we're bringing the likes of, say, Coombs, the Murray brothers, the full Ulster front row, like we're bringing a squad of 50 down there and giving these guys midweek tests. This is a series to go down and win and to show that we can win down in South Africa. But it's where those injuries have come that really kind of showed the dearth of talent, not talent, but experience that we have in places. Gibson Park being injured and Blade being in the squad really shows the type of 9 that Farrell wants more than the ability of the 9 behind him. Personally, I think Blade's form dropped like a stone towards the end of the season. That's why we had an academy player starting ahead of him for some of the bigger matches. Devine was there having some great stuff. Now, you could tell he was still in the academy, but there's a reason he was being picked over Blade just on form. So hopefully the being in Iron Camp revitalizes him, but I wouldn't see him starting based on what I was seeing towards the end of the season. I could see it being a Casey Murray 1-2. You keep the speed up with the guy who knows Crowley, and then you have the next guy in who knows Crowley to kind of keep the calm things down towards the end. It makes sense tactically. I always think in certain positions, having those combinations that play with each other week in, week out works really well. Stringer and O'Gara. Like there was years where Darcy wasn't technically the best 12 in Ireland, but he had such a good relationship with O'Driscoll that you just had to play them together. It's sometimes that positional awareness and combination matters more than the individual skill. So they're the things that's kind of where would push those selections from what I'm seeing in the squad. But it's going to be really interesting on who can push their way through in those big positions, like in six. Who's that bench option? Is it Baird, Prendergast, or Cormac? Who comes in? Does Tom O'Toole get minutes in the 16 jersey? Or sorry, the 17 jersey? Is he at loosehead for one of these matches? They're the big calls. Injuries forcing the 15 and 9 question. The next big questions are Cian Healy can't keep playing, and Peter O'Mahony is finishing up at the end of next season. So are we now effectively seeing those things being set in stone in an Irish sense now, hopefully? And to be honest, Sam Prendergast won't get a minute of game time. If he does, I will eat my hat if I had one. But I think it's really interesting that we're gone for established 10, someone who will, in my opinion, challenge Jack Crowley for that jersey in a good way, like two players genuinely making each other better with how good they are. And that'll be interesting of how he gets in camp. If he's on the bench for any of these matches, I'll be shocked, because I think it'll be Frawley in that 23 jersey for the whole thing. But it's a really interesting squad. And I think it's a squad that can really kick on in a good environment. Especially, I think, as Pierre Manny says, tours are good. They bring people together and they almost get the best out of you.
Yeah, I mean, the Tom O'Toole thing is interesting. I mean, I think versatile players have been increasingly more important to Irish squads the past few years. I suppose it's a tournament thing. I mean, I think maybe one of the criticisms with our World Cup performance is that we're not ready for going deep into those tournaments and stuff. And when you've got a limited squad, I suppose the versatile, we've brought versatile players, especially in the backs and maybe back rows as well, sort of hybrid locks and back rows. But I suppose in the front row as well, you might have to look at that as well. We have to look at different options. But again, I think it's like Jack said, it's like you wouldn't want to throw his O'Toole's first assignment against one of these South African front rows. But at least we're trying those kind of options. Now, I think this is it is an interesting squad, even with a couple of enforced absentees. I think, like you say, the majority of the team kind of picks itself. Just throwing it out there, though, what do you think we're going to do in the center now? Gary Ringrose has been doing a lot of the press this week. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be involved. Maybe we're doing a bit of funny business ourselves, trying to throw the other team. But what center pairing are we thinking? Anyone can jump in here.
It's two of the three of Bundy, Robbie, and Gary, and whoever's not starting's on the bench. Yeah. Or if it in a 5-3, they're on the bench. If it's 6-2, they'll play the second game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would argue that there might be a case for McCluskey, just purely based on his size. Robbie, Gary, and I know we're not really including Osborne in this, but they're all kind of 92 to 95 kilos. McCluskey's 20 kilos heavier. When you look at the size of every South African player, not just the centres, not just the pack, they are huge, with one or two exceptions. But we actually might need, particularly for the second test, we might actually want somebody with McCluskey's bulk and strength. And when he's been called on, McCluskey has come good for Ireland. So I'm not worried about it, but I am worried when looking at the size of Henshaw and Ringrose. And then Bundy lost a load of weight. Bundy's like 3/4 of the man he used to be. Now, power and strength, and he has all of that. But just when it comes to size, and sometimes you just need the big man for the big game.
Well, yeah, and I'll say of Stu as well. I mean, he's shown over the past few years in white and green that he's not just that big truck it up the middle carrier that that's his forte, but he does, he offloads, he's good in defense, he's tackling, he's shown all those different elements of his game, and he's definitely in that mix for sure. It's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how they go with the 12 and 13 jerseys, especially.
I've had so much, I felt so sorry for McCluskey. If he was born 5 years earlier, he'd own that 12 jersey. He's come through at such a time where there's such a quality of talent. He would start for, in my opinion, in every other, England, he'd be in the conversation for England, Scotland, Wales as well. He'd start for Wales and Scotland anyway. Yep. It's just one of those things where he's just come at a really bad time. It just happens. Sometimes you're just in with a group of guys who are just at their lines level, sadly.
Yeah,
that's
100%. Just by Michelle, you're €50 in the post, so I'll send that out to you. But I have to say I love Bundy. I mean, I couldn't make a serious argument for Stu, because I just look at Bundy and I just think he's just been of a ridiculous level for Ireland. If he's lost a bit of weight, I mean, fair play to him, but he still looks, pretty scary to me. So, I would. But it is a bit interesting. It's one of the things with Farrell's selections is he does just throw up the odd, 5-3, but he'll stick McCluskey in the 23 jumper, and he'll have Ringrose on the 13 jersey. So it really depends who plays 13. So if he sticks Ringrose in there, it'll be 6-2. If it's Henshaw, Bundy, he might go 5-3. He might stick Ringrose, on the bench, or he might stick, Stu on the bench and just be like, yes, we're going with the size. But I don't know. I think he'll stick to what he knows, and that really is a toss up between Bundy with Henshaw, Ringrose. So I imagine it's tricky. Like, Ringrose hasn't really played that much, so I think he'll probably go with Henshaw, but he may go with Ringer for the second test.
Yeah, I mean, as ever, a situation like that, it's a good one to be in, isn't it? To have all those options, and there's no combination there that you wouldn't be happy going into a big test series like this. So like you say, it'll be interesting to see how they go. Well, now just take a quick look through everything else going on in the Irish rugby world. If you go back in our podcast feed, you'll catch our preview of the men's under-20 squad at the World Championships in South Africa. And on Saturday, they got off to a flying start with a 55-15 win over Italy. Very strong and convincing team performance, especially from our centers and back row. Next up, we play Georgia on Thursday. Also on Thursday, we see the women's under-20s in action in the new summer series. It seems to be like a mini Six Nations as Niamh Briggs' team plays England, Italy, and Scotland. We, of course, wish them all the best. Meanwhile, the two Irish Sevens teams continue their preparation for the Olympics at the European Championships in Hamburg. The women recovered after a couple of early defeats to finish fifth, while the men won their title, defeating a DuPont-less France in the final, although the French just edged the overall series title on points difference. Okay, so now let's have a look at the Springboks side of things. I mean, since the dawn of the URC, there's been a kind of a rivalry developing between these two sides. And of course, over the past couple of weeks, we've had the usual buildup of nonsense in all forms on media, mainstream and social, including that little bit of input from Razzie. But listen, outside all the trolling and the how many forwards on the bench and whatnot, starting with yourself, Jack, how do we think they'll approach the actual rugby out there on the pitch?
I mean, they're just going to be unbelievably physical. I mean, it's South Africa of the last 5 years, really, ever since Razzie turned them around just before the 2019 World Cup. It's just been back to basics. Kick the ball if we're not going anywhere. Chase hard, tackle hard, rock the life out of people, scrum the life out of people. And it's one of those cliches, I guess, isn't it? It's like you're going on a tour to South Africa. You know exactly what you're going to come against, and what you're going to get, and it'll be more of the same. It'll literally, you can put your money on it if you were able to. South Africa will just be coming for you. But that's not to say that they haven't got absolute merchants out wide who will scare the life out of any back three. Another good reason why Frawley should maybe just stay on the bench and have someone a wee bit quicker at 15, like Jimmy O'Brien. So we're gonna have to. It's one of the things why it makes South Africa such a great side is you can't just focus all your efforts on the forward effort. Is that they have an outstanding 10 and 9, and guys who can control the game real well, who just put the ball in the right areas of the pitch. They've got guys like Colby, RSA, and Willie LaRue, who, run the game so well. Absolute, speed merchants, like I say, out on the high veld. And they're one of the toughest, if not the toughest test in rugby, because they just make it so hard for you. So I am expecting just out and out South Africa for this one. Just nothing but absolute brutality. Essentially like a Lions test. This is just going to be absolutely brutal, and they're just going to go with what they know is best, and that is the South African way.
Yeah, Springboks are going to Springbok. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good comparison to the Lions there, because I mean they are like they know how to get themselves, you know, up for a Lions series, and they know how to get into the get all the hype going before it, and they're really motivated. And I think it's a similar kind of vibe that we're getting off them the past couple of weeks in the build up to this series. Like they want to beat Ireland. I mean, they we're kind of this team that we, South African are known for the narrow victories, but for somehow we've managed to get the narrow victories over them in recent meetings. So they want to prove that they can do this and push past that little thing they've got going. What do you think, Parek?
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's like there's the South African way, but you have to remember that they have a new attack coach in Tony Brown, and you saw some of those elements against Wales the other weekend. That there's a few more tip on passes, and the forwards are playing a bit more ball, and Jerry Flannery's their new defense coach, so they're not completely the team that we had played last summer. So it's what elements of change from them will be interesting. Also, they only have 8 players who aren't on like our schedule in their squad. All the rest play either in South Africa or in England or France. So they're all coming to their roundabout of rugby is just going to keep on going and going and going and going and going. So it's kind of seeing what type of form those players bring in. Are we going to get the URC Sharks, hopefully, or are we going to get the South African Sharks, who are just like much better players? Are we going to get the Bulls players who are a bit like the head still in the hands from losing to Glasgow? Or are we going to get a reaction from them? Fat de Klerk is injured. That is big for South Africa because how much goes through their nine, and Mapimpi is injured. So like, don't get me wrong, Arons and Colby are fit, so they're not short or very good fast wingers. So it's how they are tweaking their attacking game is something that's actually I'm looking forward to seeing, because it's not going to be as simple as forward power. There's going to be a bit. I think there'll be a bit more subtlety in what they're doing, especially with tip on passes, kind of attacking around the fringes. So from that side of it, it's going to be really, really interesting that they are actually starting a new cycle with new coaches, with a new game plan and a new energy, which I think is not what you want when we're coming in off like a really long season. We're on almost a down end, looking for a new coach next year with a new system coming in. With Andy Farrell after the November internationals taking a break, we're in a very much different headspace. So it's those small things that are great. And one thing I found watching South Africa over the last couple of years is they're very much, like you said, a series team, a tournament team. It's not about winning by 20, it's just win the match. It's just win at all costs. And that's the type of game that they create, really good games, but physical, hard games. Their scrum is going to be a huge weapon as normal, and it's going to be incredible. Like, I'm just really looking forward to it. And South Africa, like, it's hard to actually judge South Africa given the changes they have in the coaching setup, because it is now going to be new. There'll be tweaks to what they've been doing, and will their kicking game be the same type of kicking they've been using the last couple of seasons? It might be tweaked from just moving the ball to pitch to more actual attacking kicks, which we've seen in the RC. They love they're great kickers of the ball crossfield, especially. Will there be something they'll use more of? Who knows? I just can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to look forward to there. I mean, like I say, and of course the downside of making this point online that Ireland's very predictable, which there's an argument to be made for that. But we do play a certain way in a certain kind of style. But the thing is that if you're so cocksure of how we play, then pretty sure you've got the way you're going to have a way to play against it, and you'll need to show that from the first minute. So it'll be interesting to see how these games kick off and how they approach it. What do you think, Michelle?
I think exactly that. We're unlikely to have anything up our sleeves, whereas we know Razzie is the king of having things up his sleeves. He's named a 39-man squad with a standby squad of 6 extra players, which still has some big names in that six. And he says, oh, we'll probably use them for Portugal in the third week. Anybody who believes that, I hope the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny come knocking on your door, because Razzie is reserving the right to screw with our heads, screw with our plans, screw with our tactics for the second test, depending on the outcome of the first test. He is missing some players, but getting Colby back, getting Am back, these are just talisman players, and they offer so much. And I am just exactly what Jack said. I'm worried about the power and the size and the energy. They're at home. They're the ones with the 16th man. Although if you're in a South African stadium and you're not the home team, it feels like they've an awful lot more than one extra player. The intensity is something else, and I'm nervous that our guys, after, as I say, 2 seasons into one, with a couple of big international tournaments in the middle of those, South Africa's not where I would want us going this time. So I'm a little bit nervous, especially, as I say, with Razzie pulling the strings. I don't think we're ready for what South Africa is going to bring us this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of thing it's been for Irish rugby in general in recent times. It's been important for us to establish early leads and get on the board early, and be able to see that kind of lead home. That's been a lot of time the way we've had our success. But it's from what you've all been saying as well, it's especially important for this series to get off to that kind of good start, because if you find yourself 14 more points behind after 20 minutes and stuff like that, you're starting to get into the second quarter or the second half and the bench and all that kind of stuff. You're really putting yourself in a tight spot against this lot, and their confidence will be sky high by then as well. So it's really important how especially the first test kicks off. But listen, I suppose we're talking about the series as a whole. So I'm going to go around you all really quick, just to see what kind of predictions you have for the way these two matches are going to go. Starting with yourself, Jack.
Quickly, I mean, it'd be so much easier if we were touring Australia, right? That'd be a far much easier tour, wouldn't it? Sorry, Joe Schmidt had to. Yeah, no, honestly, like I would be very happy with the guys going out there playing like they did, just playing the way that we know they can play, playing the way they played in Marseille against France. If they play like that, they can 100% win a test series in South Africa. But it is South Africa. It's at the end of the season. It's been a while since we toured there. We had a very different team. South Africa had a very different team. We've sneaked by South Africa the last couple of times. But to be quite honest with you, if you had to give me, if I had to put money on it, I would say that South Africa will probably get a 2-0 win in this series. But that's not to devalue the effort and the kind of what these boys are going to put in there. We could very well come out 2-0 winners as well. I think that's how tight this kind of contest will be, because these are number one, number two in the world. Let's not forget that. And for all the things about tiredness and it being a long season, when it comes down to the 80 minutes, these guys are just going to absolutely give it 100%. So it's going to be so exciting. Very looking forward to it. But don't be surprised if South Africa give us a wee 2-0 to send us home. But that's not to be sniffed at, especially when they're in the mood.
Yeah, absolutely. But in there, you did say we could win 2-0, which means, of course, if South Africa Rugby Mag listens to this, there'll be articles saying Irish fans think definitely 2-0 win will be the headlines tomorrow morning for sure.
Yeah.
Over to yourself, Parag. What do you think?
It's really interesting because we don't know what this new South Africa looks like. I'm not sure, because I don't think they've been able to chase the lead in the last couple of years. So it's very important that no matter what happens, if Ireland to have a chance, we need to kind of have that opening 10 minutes where you definitely get 10 points minimum on the board. Overall, there's two real battles there, really. Like, it's what is a series win? Is it 2 wins or is it a points difference? Because I think Ireland could win one by 3 points, and Ulster could win, and South Africa could win one by 5 points.
Ulster could win as well. I'd be happy with that too. That'd be grand. Yeah.
And South Africa could win by 5 points. So if they won the series by 2 points, it's like one of those type of Or what if it ends up being a 3-point win and a 3-point win? Do we share the spoils? It's kind of really like it's the problem. It's the problem with the two match tour. But I'm so glad it's not 3, and that's for sure. So I personally think we'll share a win. I think it'll be 2 close matches. We'll share 1 win each and be points difference at the end of it. And I think the true battle will be on social media and who can get their off the ball version under control and not let them say stupid things that will be put up in dressing room on walls and all that type of stuff. It's like we just get a message to like everyone going like, just stop, stop for a week, just stop for a week, please.
Take that time off. Absolutely. Michelle?
I think we're going to lose at least 1. Going back to what I was saying about Rassie and what he has up his sleeves in terms of players, in terms of the unknown with the new game plan, with the new coaching ticket. So I totally believe that if we give everything, we can win. But if we're going to win, it's going to be the first test because Rassie's going to throw the kitchen sink at us at the second test. So it's terrible that I'm writing off next week's game and there's a chance for this week's game. Initially I was thinking along Jack's lines. My big wish though is whatever the outcome, no injuries. Please, no injuries. These players have given blood, sweat and tears for 2 years with very little break. And it would break my heart to see somebody coming back in a cast or on crutches or in a sling. So as long as that happens, the outcome is not as important to me.
Absolutely. I mean, they're 2 such big games that we already know are going to be physical, where we have to up our physicality, and it's going to, and you've got all the components of the atmosphere and all that stuff. And it is 2 big games at the end of a long season. So we definitely do hope for that. But listen, I take, if you handed me a series split right now, I suppose I take it. But of course, if we win the first test, we'll all believe, oh, hey, we can go in that second one as well. So that'd be a different dynamic. But listen, it's definitely a lot to look forward to, and we'll see how it turns out. It's going to be great. Like Bark says, very much looking forward to it. Okay, well, listen, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much to Pádraig, Michelle, and Jack for joining me. It's a great chat there, and I hope to have you back on again soon. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As for our next batch of Harpin, we will, of course, be giving Saturday's first test the full Harpin treatment with a bonus opposition view pod and then a preview, as well, of course, as a wrap pod at the weekend. Plus, as ever, there will be our bits and pieces across our various social media channels. Please help us out by commenting, liking, sharing, and subscribing. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.